The sun barely rose over the horizon of Vereen, its pale light reflecting off endless ice. The storm from the previous days had faded, leaving a crisp clarity that revealed the frozen plains in sharp detail. From the observation dome, Commander Rion watched the Thalari positions carefully. The Empire's forces had regrouped after their cautious advance through the canyon and along the ridges. But their progress had been slowed by human planning, ingenuity, and endurance. Ryan turned to Lieutenant Mara, who had been reviewing data from the night. "They have regrouped," he said. "They are expecting resistance, but not what we have prepared for them today." Mara nodded, her eyes bright with focus. "We have learned their patterns. Every hesitation, every recalculation they made yesterday has taught us how they think. Today we use that knowledge." Outside, the wind carried a crisp chill across the plains, yet human teams moved with precision and purpose. Scouts checked sensors, drones flew in careful patterns above the ice, and engineers made final adjustments to geothermal vents and ice bridges. The entire outpost was a living system of observation and preparation. Every human action, no matter how small, contributed to the larger plan. Lieutenant Joran adjusted the pressure sensors beneath the ice. "They will follow the paths we predict. Every step they take will be guided. Their confidence will turn into hesitation when they reach the areas we have prepared." Solon released a fleet of drones, small and fast, shaped like native icebergs. They moved silently above the Thalari positions, feeding real-time images to the command dome. Each drone projected subtle signals that the Empire misread as safe pathways, guiding their units unknowingly toward areas of human advantage. The first human maneuver of the day was subtle but effective. Scouts guided Thalari units along narrow ice ridges, leading them toward strategically weakened surfaces. Walkers paused as the ice shifted under their weight, recalibrating constantly. Human teams observed every movement, recording patterns and adjusting plans. The Empire's machines were powerful, yet they were slowed by the very environment humans had mastered. Ryan addressed his team quietly, his voice calm and steady. "We do not need to strike them with force. Every hesitation, every recalculation, every delay is proof that we control the battlefield. We endure, we adapt, and we remain unbroken." By midday, humans began to demonstrate their ingenuity more boldly. Geothermal vents released controlled bursts of heat, creating steam clouds that blocked Thalari sensors. The Empire's scanners interpreted the anomalies as environmental hazards, forcing units to slow even further. Human drones relayed live information, allowing scouts to predict movement with extraordinary accuracy. Mara watched the display closely. "They think they are moving freely, but they are reacting to our guidance. Every step they take reinforces our advantage. They do not understand the terrain, and they do not understand us." In another section of the outpost, engineers reinforced shelters and generators, ensuring continuous operations. Civilians maintained communication links, prepared meals, and kept morale high. Every action, however small, was part of the larger strategy. Human endurance was not measured by strength alone, but by the ability to sustain life, intelligence, and unity in the harshest conditions. As the Thalari advanced, they encountered a canyon that humans had prepared carefully. Ice bridges and subtle ridges forced them into slow movement. Sensors beneath the snow detected every hesitation, providing data that allowed human teams to guide the Empire's units further. Small bursts of steam from geothermal vents created obstacles without direct confrontation, showing that human ingenuity could turn even natural hazards into strategic advantages. Ryan walked through the observation dome, checking each station. "Observe, record, and predict. Do not act hastily. Let them learn the consequences of underestimating humanity." Lieutenant Joran monitored the ice sensors. Every pause, every adjustment they make is a victory. They rely on technology, but it cannot overcome intuition, observation, and experience. The ice is teaching them, and we are guiding it. Solon's drones intercepted Thalari communication signals. They fed subtle false data, creating minor confusion and hesitation among the Empire's units. Humans had created a battlefield that was not only physical but also mental. The Thalari were powerful, but they could not adapt as quickly as humans could. By late afternoon, the turning point was clear. Thalari units were navigating slowly, carefully, and cautiously, unable to proceed with the speed and certainty they had assumed. Human teams continued to guide their movements, observe reactions, and maintain complete control. Every small decision made by the Empire reinforced human dominance of the battlefield. Ryan addressed his team with quiet pride. Look at what we have achieved. They have power, but we have patience, strategy, and endurance. We have shown that intelligence, preparation, and resilience are as powerful as any weapon. Today, humanity proves it does not yield, Mara added. They believe their technology and numbers would give them victory. They do not understand the value of observation, planning, and adaptability. We are teaching them lessons that will echo beyond Varine. As evening approached, human teams guided the Thalari into a final series of prepared areas. Ice bridges, subtle ridges, and geothermal vents created natural obstacles that forced hesitation. The Empire's units had become slow, cautious, and unsure. Every action was monitored, every response recorded, and every advantage leveraged. In the command dome, civilians and support staff continued their work. Every meal, every repair, every observation contributed to the overall strategy. Humans understood that survival was a collective effort. Even those not on the front lines were critical to the outcome. Every individual's endurance, intelligence, and focus strengthened the whole. By nightfall, the Thalari were contained within areas where humans had anticipated every movement. They could not advance without recalculating, slowing, and reacting to subtle environmental changes they could not fully understand. Humans had turned the frozen world itself into an ally, demonstrating that intelligence, planning, and perseverance could overcome even the most advanced technology. Ryan walked to the observation window and gazed across the plains. The pale light reflected off the ice, illuminating the vast expanse where human strategy had controlled every movement. He thought of the soldiers, engineers, civilians, and children who had contributed to this moment. Every act of endurance, creativity, and observation had led to a single truth: humanity was unbroken. Mara joined him quietly. They expected submission, she said. They will leave with a lesson they did not expect. We endure, we adapt, and we guide even the harshest environment. We are humans and we are unbroken. Rian nodded, his eyes fixed on the horizon. The Thalari had come with confidence, expecting easy dominance. Yet humans had shown that endurance, intelligence, and careful planning could turn the impossible into advantage. The Empire would not forget this lesson. Inside the outpost, life continued with quiet determination. Scouts returned with reports of Thalari hesitation. Drones relayed images from above the plains, and engineers maintained equipment to ensure uninterrupted operation. Every human action, no matter how small, contributed to the collective strength of the team. The storm that had once tested Varine's inhabitants had passed, leaving behind clarity, but the lessons of endurance remained. Humans had adapted to every challenge, learned from every obstacle, and created solutions that the Thalari could not anticipate. Every calculated delay, every guided movement, every careful observation had turned the frozen world into a fortress of ingenuity. Ryan addressed the outpost one final time before rest. Today we have proven that humanity does not yield. We endure, we adapt. We overcome challenges with intelligence, persistence, and unity. Varine stands because humans stand together. Remember this, for the galaxy will remember it too. Solon watched drones glide over the frozen plains, feeding live data to the command dome. Every movement they make is influenced by us, every hesitation recorded. They may not see it, but they are guided by human intelligence. This is the power of endurance, observation, and ingenuity. The night settled fully over Varine, quiet except for the faint hum of equipment and the occasional groan of shifting ice. Humans had achieved victory without confrontation, relying on skill, patience, and knowledge of the world around them. The Thalari had underestimated human creativity, persistence, and endurance. The frozen plains had become a testament to human intelligence and resilience. Rion stood one last time at the observation window, gazing across the ice. The horizon was clear, revealing the frozen landscape that humans had mastered. He thought of the soldiers, engineers, and civilians who had endured storms, fear, and isolation. Together, they had created a living system of preparation, observation, and guidance. Humanity had turned the harshest environment into an ally, proving that strength was more than weapons. The Empire may return, Rion said quietly, but they will always face the truth of humanity. We endure, we adapt, and we guide the world around us. Varine is ours, and humanity remains unbroken. In the quiet of the command dome, the outpost continued its work, each action purposeful, each mind focused. Humans had demonstrated that unity, intelligence. The days on Varine blurred together under the cold gray sky. Storms swept across the frozen plains with relentless fury, but inside the human outpost, life moved with precision and purpose. The Thalari had established several observation points on the ice, cautiously advancing, yet every movement was anticipated, every step guided by the humans' intimate knowledge of the land. Commander Ryan moved through the command dome, watching his team analyze every detail of the enemy's approach. On the holographic map, colored dots indicated Thalari units, their positions constantly shifting. Some were stationary, observing the terrain, while others attempted to maneuver across the ice. Each human scout report came back with subtle details that the Thalari could not detect. Every drift of snow, every hidden crevice, every change in ice thickness became part of a growing strategy. Lieutenant Mara studied the patterns carefully. "They are cautious, but they are learning," she said. "Every move we force them to make teaches them something about the ice, but not about us. They see the terrain, but they cannot see the traps we have hidden." Ryan nodded. "We show them what we choose. They will think they understand Varine, but they do not. Every false path, every diversion, every small victory belongs to us. We must remain patient." Outside, the wind tore across the plains, carrying snow that stung the face like fine needles. Human scouts moved silently through the blizzard, their footsteps carefully measured, their eyes alert for signs of Thalari movement. They were small in number, yet they had an advantage that the Empire could not match. Humans were adaptable. Humans learned quickly. Humans endured. Solon adjusted his fleet of drones for the day's mission. The machines were small and fast, shaped like icebergs to blend with the environment. Their cameras streamed live images back to the command dome. Each drone carried sensors capable of detecting weight shifts on the ice, thermal changes, and subtle vibrations. The Thalari would see only snow and shadows, unaware that humans were observing every action. The first act of defiance came quietly. A small Thalari scout moved along a frozen ridge, intending to survey a wide canyon. Solon's drones tracked it from above, and Mara used the information to guide a subtle ice diversion. Humans had carefully weakened a section of the ridge days earlier, knowing it could support a single figure but not sustained weight. When the scout passed, the ice gave slightly, causing the Thalari to hesitate. They recalibrated, uncertain. The delay was brief, but in human planning, every second mattered. Ryan smiled faintly as he observed the reaction. They expected easy terrain, easy observation. The ice teaches patience and caution. That is our advantage. Hours passed and the storm intensified. Visibility dropped to nearly zero in many areas, yet human scouts continued to relay critical updates. They marked safe passages, observed Thalari movements, and noted areas where ice could shift unexpectedly. Every message was short, precise, and strategically valuable. Even small pieces of information gave humans control over the battlefield. At one observation post, Lieutenant Joran worked with a team of engineers to set up a subtle network of sensors beneath the snow. These sensors were harmless but intelligent, able to detect pressure, temperature, and movement. They did not attack the Thalari, yet they caused confusion. When the Empire's walkers approached, the sensors fed false data to their systems, showing pathways that seemed safe but led to soft snow or hidden ice crevices. "They think they are moving freely," Joran said quietly, "but the ice leads them where we want. They do not know it yet, but we are teaching them a lesson without raising a hand." Meanwhile, inside the domes, human families continued their routines. Children played under watchful eyes. Engineers maintained generators and food supplies were monitored closely. Every small act contributed to the greater effort. Survival on Varine was not just a matter of fighting the Empire. It was a matter of maintaining life, morale, and endurance in a world that offered no comfort. Ryan walked through the hallways, checking on each team. "Your work matters," he reminded them. "Every calculation, every repair, every observation is part of a larger strategy. We are not just defending a planet. We are proving that humans can endure, adapt, and prevail in ways others cannot." By midday, the Thalari began to advance more cautiously. They had detected some anomalies, but they could not interpret the cause. Each false reading, each small ice failure forced them to pause and recalibrate. Human observers noted every hesitation, every slight error, and every adjustment. Each moment reinforced the message. Humans were not weak, humans were not predictable, and humans would not yield. Solon's drones intercepted a small Thalari communication relay. Using subtle electronic interference, they fed false positional data back to the Empire. The Thalari adjusted their formation in response, unknowingly following the path humans had prepared. Rian watched silently. "They think they lead, but we guide," he said. Even the animals native to Varine played a role. Small, hardy creatures scurried across the ice, distracting sensors and creating additional false readings. Human teams had studied their movements, learning to use natural life as part of their strategy. The Empire's technology could not distinguish between nature and humans' carefully orchestrated plans. As night fell, a thin light barely illuminated the frozen plains. The storm continued, relentless and harsh, yet humans moved efficiently, adapting to the darkness and cold. Scouts returned with reports of Thalari hesitation, confusion, and subtle missteps. Each piece of information was recorded, analyzed, and used to refine future strategies. Rian gathered his team for a briefing. Mara highlighted key areas where the Thalari were most vulnerable. They rely on technology, but the ice works against them. They cannot sense what lies beneath, and they cannot move as freely as we can. Our strength is endurance, adaptation, and observation, Lieutenant Joran added. Every small error we create will delay them further. They may have numbers and machines, but we have knowledge, patience, and persistence. The storm is our ally, the ice is our ally, and our minds are our strongest weapon. Rian nodded, feeling a quiet pride. Humans were proving themselves not through force, but through ingenuity. They were demonstrating that survival and intelligence could overcome even the most powerful opponents. The Thalari had assumed dominance, yet humans had already gained the advantage through creativity, observation, and endurance. The first direct encounter came the next day, though it was more cleverness than conflict. A Thalari unit attempted to traverse a canyon that humans had studied for weeks. Mara had identified weak points in the ice, subtle slopes that could slow heavy machinery. When the Thalari approached, they found unexpected resistance. Walkers slowed, sensors registered anomalies, and the unit paused to analyze the terrain. Human scouts guided the Thalari along paths that seemed safe, but required constant recalculation. Every hesitation and adjustment was noted by humans, allowing them to predict future moves. It was a quiet victory, achieved without violence, yet it echoed the strength of human will. Solon reported on the drone's activities. "They believe they are learning the terrain. We allow them to think they understand, but they do not. Every step they take is guided by us. The ice teaches them caution, and we teach them patience." In the Central Command Dome, civilians and support staff continued their work. Every meal prepared, every piece of equipment maintained, and every child cared for contributed to the larger strategy. Humans understood that survival was not measured only in tactics, but in the ability to maintain life, morale, and hope. Rian reflected on the situation. The Thalari were powerful, but humans had qualities that no technology could replicate. Creativity, resilience, patience, and endurance were forces that shaped outcomes as surely as any weapon. On Varine, humans demonstrated these qualities every day. They moved with purpose, observed with care, and adapted without hesitation. As the storm began to wane, a quiet sense of achievement settled over the outpost. The Thalari had advanced cautiously, learned subtle lessons from the ice, and yet they had made no progress toward dominance. Humans had controlled the battlefield without raising a hand, without striking a blow. The Empire's assumption of superiority was slowly being challenged, and the story of Varine began to echo beyond its icy plains. Rian addressed his team quietly, his voice carrying through the command dome. "Today we proved something important. We do not yield to fear. We do not yield to power alone. We endure, we adapt, and we lead with intelligence and patience. This is only the beginning. The Empire will test us further, but they will see that humanity cannot be underestimated." Mara looked out at the frozen plains, her eyes catching the faint light of the sun through the clouds. They will leave with a lesson they did not expect. We are not just survivors. We are humans. Rian's gaze returned to the horizon, where the faint outlines of Thalari craft moved cautiously across the ice. The wind continued to howl, carrying snow in sharp swirling waves, yet humans moved calmly, working efficiently, and using every advantage the frozen world offered. They adapted to darkness, cold, and uncertainty, turning what others saw as a weakness into strength. In every dome, in every hall, In every observation post, humans continued their work. Every small act, every careful observation, and every subtle manipulation of the sky above Varine darkened as shadows from distant ships stretched across the ice plains. Humans in the outpost were the first to notice the change. The pale light of the dim sun faded behind the growing silhouettes of Thalari cruisers. Each ship was enormous, their hulls glinting faintly under the clouded sky. They moved with precise coordination, a vast and silent armada descending from orbit. Commander Rion stood at the observation window, his eyes scanning the horizon. He had expected this moment. Every plan, every preparation, every calculation led to the inevitability of contact. Yet seeing the fleet arrive in person brought a new weight to the situation. The Thalari ships were unlike anything humans had faced before. Their shapes were angular, their surfaces covered in strange glowing patterns, and their size made even the largest human vessels look like toys. Lieutenant Mara joined him, her face illuminated by the soft glow of the holographic maps inside the command dome. "They are larger than the report suggested," she said. "Their sensors must already be scanning the planet. They will know our locations soon." Ryan did not respond immediately. He studied the fleet, counting the visible ships and estimating the number hidden in the clouds above. Then he spoke, calm and steady. "They will see what they want to see. We will show them only what we allow. Varine is our home, and we know it better than they could ever imagine." The first wave of Thalari landing craft broke from the shadow of the orbiting cruisers. They glided toward the frozen plains with eerie silence, skimming just above the ice. On the surface, the storm intensified, whipping snow across the vast expanse and making it almost impossible to see clearly. The humans watched as the craft descended, their sensors feeding live data to the command dome. Lieutenant Joran, stationed near the perimeter, adjusted his equipment constantly. "They are moving fast, but the storms are working for us. Visibility will slow them down. Our sensors will track them even in whiteout conditions." His voice held the same steady tone he used in training exercises, but beneath it lay a thread of tension. Solon released his drones into the storm. They flew ahead of the Thalari craft, small and bird-like, their sensors scanning for terrain changes, ice fissures, and hidden threats. The drones returned periodically, feeding images to the human crews. On the screens, the landing forces appeared distant but precise, their movements coordinated, like a living tide advancing across the frozen landscape. Ryan walked among his team, checking each station, each sensor, and each generator. He knew that the Thalari assumed humans were fragile in the cold. They did not understand endurance born from generations of survival in hostile conditions. He also knew humans were not just surviving, they were adapting, using every advantage the ice could offer. Hours passed, and the first skirmishes began, not with weapons, but with observation. Thalari drones approached the outpost, attempting to map defenses. Solon and his team intercepted the signals, redirecting the drones to false locations, giving the impression that the human population was scattered, or even smaller than it truly was. The Thalari could not see through the deception, and every moment gained by human ingenuity strengthened their position. In one of the communication chambers, Mara adjusted the holographic maps with care. She highlighted areas where the ice was most unstable, where the Thalari craft would likely slow down or be delayed. "We can guide them into traps," she said, "not with violence, but with clever use of the terrain. They will think they are moving freely, but the ice will guide them where we want." Ryan nodded. "Good. Every step we delay them is a victory. Every mistake they make is proof that we do not yield easily." Outside, the first landing parties touched the ice. They were larger than humans, with suits designed for extreme conditions. Their movements were precise, but their sensors were not yet adapted to the storm's chaos. Human scouts reported fissures in the ice opening unexpectedly, areas where snowdrifts hid crevices that could swallow even the largest Thalari walker. Every small obstacle forced the invaders to slow, to recalculate, and to reveal the limits of their assumptions. Inside the outpost, families and support staff continued their work. Engineers maintained heating systems, food supplies were checked, and communications with other human colonies were tested. Every individual understood that their contributions were as important as those on the front lines. Rion often reminded his crew that survival on Varine was a collective effort. Strength was not measured in weapons alone, but in resilience, creativity, and unity. The storm outside raged harder as the day passed. Wind tore across the plains, ice groaned under the weight of snow, and visibility dropped to almost nothing. Despite these conditions, human scouts used their knowledge of the terrain to move efficiently. They marked safe paths, mapped hidden crevices, and sent coded signals back to the command dome. Each message was precise, concise, and full of critical information. Ryan walked through the hallways of the command dome. He saw the determination etched into the faces of every human inside. Soldiers checked their equipment repeatedly, engineers tested drones, and planners refined every strategy. There was a quiet hum of activity that felt almost alive. It was a rhythm born from survival, and it gave Ryan a sense of calm despite the looming threat. By evening, the Thalari were fully aware of human presence. Their scanners had detected movement, heat signatures, and signs of habitation. But they had not expected humans to adapt so quickly, to move silently, and to hide critical information behind layers of clever decoys. Every attempt to probe the defenses was met with a new human strategy. Solin's drones intercepted a Thalari scout craft, feeding it false data that led the craft into a deep ice crevice. The ship's sensors reported back incorrect coordinates, and the human team recorded every moment. "They will trust the ice," Solin said. "They will move where we allow. The storm is our ally." Ryan called a meeting with Mara, Joran, and Solin. "We are not just defending a planet. We are proving that humans can endure what others cannot. Every system we build, every calculation we make, every small step we take against them is a message. The Thalari believe in power alone. They do not understand persistence, intelligence, or the will to survive." Mara nodded. "We have time on our side. The storm worsens at night, and their landing parties cannot adapt as quickly as we can. We can use this to slow them further, forcing them to make mistakes without striking a single blow." Ryan's gaze returned to the observation window. The ice plain stretched endlessly, illuminated by flashes of sunlight through the clouds. It was a harsh and unforgiving environment, yet it was home. Humans had built cities in this frozen wilderness, survived storms that would have ended lesser species, and adapted in ways the Thalari could not comprehend. As night fell, the first contact on the ground occurred. It was not a battle, but a test. The Thalari sent a small group to establish a forward observation post near a canyon. Human scouts detected the movement immediately. Using the frozen landscape, they guided the group along a path that seemed clear, but led to an ice bridge with thin support. The Thalari advanced carefully, unaware of the subtle dangers beneath. When the human team observed the response, they noted hesitation, recalculations, and cautious movement. Rion smiled faintly. "They are learning the first lesson," he said. "Humans do not follow the obvious path. We do not yield to appearances." Back in the outpost, support staff prepared meals, repaired equipment, and maintained communications with distant colonies. They worked without complaint, knowing that every action mattered. Children played quietly in designated safe areas, watched over by adults who had endured storms and danger many times before. Even in the smallest acts of daily life, humans demonstrated endurance and unity. Through the long night, the storm did not relent. Winds tore across the plains, snow drifted in high waves, and ice groaned under pressure. Yet humans moved calmly, working efficiently and using every advantage the frozen world offered. They adapted to darkness, cold, and isolation, turning what others saw as a weakness into strength. When dawn approached, the Thalari were still advancing cautiously. They had underestimated the humans' knowledge of the ice, their creativity, and their coordination. Every step forward required recalculations, extra effort, and constant adaptation. Meanwhile, humans continued to observe, record, and guide the enemy's movements with intelligence born from survival. Ryan looked at the horizon, the pale light of the sun cutting through the clouds. He knew the Empire would not leave easily. They would return with larger forces, more technology, and higher expectations. But he also knew that humans had already proven something critical. In the frozen wasteland of Varine, humans could endure what others could not, adapt faster than machines, and remain unbroken even in the harshest conditions. "This is only the beginning," Rian said quietly to his team. "The Thalari will test us again and again. They will expect fear and failure. They will be surprised. Humanity on Varine is ready. We endure. We adapt and we will show the galaxy what it means to stand unbroken. The wind howled through the ice plains, carrying snow in sharp, swirling waves. Yet inside the Varian outpost, humans continued their work, their determination as unyielding as the frozen world itself. The frozen plains of Varine seemed endless as dawn broke over the ice. The storm had eased, leaving behind sharp winds and scattered snowdrifts. From the observation dome, Commander Ryan watched the Thalari movements with steady eyes. The Empire's forces had advanced cautiously, slowed by the humans' clever use of terrain, and now they faced the full challenge of a world built to test endurance, intelligence, and patience. Rion turned to Lieutenant Mara, who had been studying the enemy positions for hours. "They are hesitant," he said. "They expect resistance, but not the level of strategy we can maintain. Today we make our move." Mara nodded, her eyes fixed on the holographic display. "We have prepared the ice for this moment. Every ridge, every crevice, every vent is part of a plan. They will not see it coming until it is too late." Outside, the Thalari had spread into several groups across the plains. Some units moved near the canyons where humans had mapped weak ice formations. Others attempted to secure higher ground for observation. Every step they took was monitored by human scouts, drones, and sensors placed beneath the snow. Lieutenant Joran, stationed near the perimeter, adjusted the pressure sensors hidden beneath the ice. "The first wave will be funneled through the canyon," he said. "They will think it is the safest path, but we have prepared it to guide them exactly where we want. Every hesitation will work in our favor." Solan's drones took flight, small and silent against the pale light. They moved ahead of the Thalari units, scanning the terrain, feeding real-time data to the human command. Each drone had been programmed to project subtle signals that the Thalari interpreted as safe passages. In truth, they led the Empire's forces toward areas where human knowledge of the ice gave them a clear advantage. The first signs of change came when a Thalari walker reached the canyon entrance. It moved carefully, sensors scanning for obstacles, yet it was already influenced by the humans' preparations. The ice beneath it had been weakened in precise areas, forcing slower movement and creating small delays. Human scouts recorded every hesitation. The Thalari engineers attempted to compensate, but the patterns were unfamiliar, unpredictable, and frustrating. Rion walked through the observation dome, checking each station. "Every second counts," he said quietly. "We control the battlefield through intelligence, observation, and planning. The Empire has power, but we have persistence and foresight." By midday, human ingenuity began to shift the balance. Small geothermal vents had been carefully engineered to release controlled bursts of heat and steam. When the first Thalari units approached, plumes of steam rose from hidden vents, obscuring their sensors and forcing them to adjust positions. The Empire's scanners registered the anomalies as environmental hazards, and their units slowed further, unsure of the terrain. Mara monitored the situation closely. "They are moving more cautiously," she said. "Each adjustment gives us the chance to reinforce our advantage. The storm may be gone, but the ice is still working for us." In another section of the outpost, engineers reinforced portable shelters and generator units. These small structures allowed humans to maintain warmth and energy, while ensuring constant surveillance of the battlefield. Civilians assisted by managing supplies and maintaining communications with distant human colonies. Every action contributed to the larger strategy. As the Thalari continued their advance, human scouts began guiding them toward areas where ice had been prepared to shift under pressure. The first walker crossed a fragile ridge, and sensors indicated subtle but critical vibrations. It paused to stabilize itself, giving human teams precious time to observe and plan further interventions. Rion spoke to Lieutenant Joran and Solan. "They think they are moving freely, but we guide them. Patience and observation are our greatest strengths. Do not act hastily. Wait for the right moment to make the difference clear." Solan adjusted the drone's flight paths. "They are reacting to our signals. Every move they make is predictable now. They do not see the hidden dangers, and they will not understand until it is too late." As the day progressed, the Thalari found themselves navigating a maze designed to challenge logic and patience. Narrow ice bridges, uneven ridges, and hidden crevices forced their units to slow and recalculate constantly. Each delay allowed humans to maintain the initiative. The Empire's advanced technology could not overcome the strategic use of environmental knowledge, and every hesitation reinforced human control. In the command dome, Ryan addressed his team. Today we show the Empire that strength alone does not define victory. Intelligence, creativity, and persistence are equally powerful. We will demonstrate the value of human ingenuity. The first decisive maneuver occurred when a Thalari unit approached a section of the canyon where geothermal vents had been precisely positioned. Steam erupted from the ice at unexpected intervals, creating a wall of heat and mist. Sensors were disrupted, forcing the walkers to slow even more. Human scouts had predicted their reactions to within seconds, and every adjustment was recorded for future strategy. Mara observed the operation carefully. They are cautious but confused. Every movement is now part of our plan. The ice and storm are allies. We do not fight with weapons but with knowledge and timing. From another vantage point, Joran guided additional sensors, ensuring that all units were tracked accurately. Small vibrations and subtle shifts in the ice were monitored and interpreted, providing precise predictions of movement. Humans were reading the battlefield like an open book, while the Empire's forces struggled to interpret signals that did not fit their expectations. The day continued with careful coordination. Thalari units were maneuvered into positions where their progress slowed naturally. Drones observed every action, while sensors and vents maintained a subtle but effective influence over the terrain. Even without firing a single shot, humans had gained control of the battlefield. As evening approached, the first Thalari engineers attempted to bypass the canyon, seeking alternative paths. Human scouts predicted their route, placing additional vents and subtle ice modifications along likely tracks. By nightfall, every movement of the Empire's units had been anticipated, delayed, and guided, demonstrating the power of preparation and strategy. In the command dome, Ryan addressed the team. Look at what we have achieved without a single confrontation. The Empire believes in force and numbers, but we have shown them the value of observation, planning, and patience. This is the turning point. They will learn that humans endure, adapt, and control even the most hostile environment. Solon reviewed drone footage and sensor data. Every hesitation, every adjustment, every pause by the Thalari is a result of our planning. They may not understand it yet, but they are being guided by human intelligence at every step. Outside, the wind howled across the frozen plains, carrying snow in sharp, swirling waves. Yet human teams moved efficiently, maintaining the initiative and reinforcing their advantage. Every step taken, every observation made, and every adjustment executed demonstrated endurance, intelligence, and coordination. By the time night fully fell, the Thalari were contained in the sections of the canyon where humans had predicted every move. Their scanners indicated only obstacles and anomalies, while human teams maintained complete control. The Empire had power, but humans had mastery of the environment, insight, and resilience. Ryan walked through the observation dome one final time before rest. "This is the proof of what humanity can do," he said quietly. "We do not rely on strength alone. We do not yield to expectation. We endure, we adapt, and we create opportunity from every challenge. The turning point is here. Varine is ours not because of weapons, but because of intelligence and persistence." Mara joined him, her eyes reflecting the pale light of the frozen world outside. "They will remember this," she said. "The Empire will know that humans do not follow the obvious path. We endure and we guide the world around us." Rian nodded, gazing out across the endless ice. The Thalari had arrived confident in their superiority, yet humans had proven that persistence, strategy, and knowledge of the environment could overcome assumptions of power. The battle was far from over, but the first decisive advantage had been won. In the quiet of the command dome, engineers, scouts, and support staff continued their work. Every sensor, every drone, every calculation, and every act of endurance contributed to the greater plan. Humans had shown that even in the harshest environment, unity, creativity, and persistence could overcome obstacles that seemed insurmountable. The wind outside carried the frozen whispers of the plains, yet inside humans moved calmly and deliberately. Every decision was precise, every action purposeful. The turning point had been achieved not through force, but through patience, intelligence, and the refusal to yield. Ryan stood once more at the observation window, watching the faint outlines of Thalari units retreat slightly to regroup. He knew that tomorrow would bring new challenges, but he also knew that humans had proven something critical. They could endure, they could adapt, and they could turn the environment itself into an advantage. The Empire may return with greater strength, he said softly, but they will always face the truth of humanity. We do not break. We endure, we adapt, and we will continue to guide our destiny with intelligence and determination. The planet Varine hung at the edge of the known galaxy like a frozen jewel. Its surface was a vast expanse of ice and snow, stretching farther than the eye could see. The sky was always pale, a faint light filtering through thick clouds that carried endless storms. Temperatures dropped far below anything humans had ever faced on their home planets. Yet this desolate world had become humanity's most crucial stronghold. Commander Ryan walked along the outer corridor of the Varine defense outpost. His boots crunched against the frost-covered metal as he adjusted the collar of his heavy uniform. Each breath formed a small cloud, a fleeting reminder of warmth in the endless cold. He had seen many planets in his service, but Varine had a quiet danger that made the hairs on his neck stand straight. It was not just the ice, it was the isolation. Once you stepped outside, there was nothing for hundreds of kilometers except snow, wind, and a frozen silence that could swallow a person in minutes. Ryan stopped at the observation window and looked out. The horizon was a pale blur of white and gray. In the distance, the surface shook under the pressure of a brewing storm. Human settlements had been built in domes reinforced with layers of insulated alloys. Each dome was a small city of lights, warmth, and life. From above, it would have seemed fragile, almost toy-like against the unending frost. Yet inside, hundreds of humans were busy preparing for the impossible. The Thalari Empire had set its eyes on Varine months ago. They considered humans weak, slow, and incapable of surviving in conditions that were almost lethal. Their scouts had sent messages filled with derision. "Resistance is pointless. Yield and your suffering will be brief," the messages read. Ryan did not read them aloud to his crew. Words like these could demoralize the unprepared, but he knew humans were different. They were stubborn, creative, and willing to endure more than any other species he had encountered in his travels. Inside the main command dome, Lieutenant Mara was reviewing maps on a holographic display. Lines of potential Thalari attack paths glowed in red. Every canyon, every ice crevice, every cliff was marked. Mara's fingers hovered over the display as if she could push the enemy back with a gesture. "Storms will cover their approach," she said. "But we cannot assume luck will be enough. We need traps, diversions, and sensors everywhere." Ryan nodded. Mara had a sharp mind, and her planning had saved lives on multiple fronts. "We make the ice work for us," he said. "We do not hide from it. We use it." In the corner of the room, an engineer named Solon was working on small drones. The machines were designed to resemble native icebergs, small and silent, capable of scouting far ahead of human lines. Solon adjusted their flight programs and sensors carefully. "If the Empire thinks they can surprise us, they are mistaken," he said. "These birds will show us every shadow before it touches the ground." Outside, the wind picked up. The frozen plains seemed to stretch endlessly. Snow swept in jagged sheets, and the temperature dropped even lower. Humans had adapted, learning to endure more than the Thalari expected. Their uniforms were layered, not just for warmth, but for protection from the cold winds that could strip a person bare in minutes. Their bodies had been trained to withstand fatigue and frost. Their minds had been trained to remain calm when the storm howled like a living creature. Ryan turned from the window and walked toward the communications console. He picked up a small handheld device and spoke quietly into it. "All units, prepare for inspection. Check heat generators, sensors, and shelters. Every detail matters." His voice was calm but firm. Orders were not suggestions on Varine. They were lifelines. The crew moved quickly. Teams spread across the dome complexes, checking everything twice. Generators were tested under load. Sensors were recalibrated for ice interference. Supply caches were inspected. Even minor mistakes could cost lives in this world, and everyone knew it. Despite the pressure, there was a sense of unity. They were humans, and they understood one truth: survival depended on each other. As the hours passed, the storm worsened. Outside, the white landscape became a blur. Visibility dropped to almost nothing. Yet inside the outpost, humans worked with efficiency that no machine could match. Solon's drones took off through narrow openings, scanning the storm for hidden dangers. Their cameras sent live feeds back to the command dome, showing only frozen rock, ice, and drifting snow. Still, every human knew that the Thalari would arrive eventually. Ryan walked to the edge of the dome again. He thought of the reports he had received about Thalari scouting ships moving through nearby systems. The Empire's fleet was enormous, their war machines faster and more powerful than anything humanity had built. Most species would have surrendered immediately. Most species would have evacuated, abandoned Varine, and fled to warmer, safer worlds. Humans did not do that. They had built cities on ice, grown food under artificial sunlight, and learned to thrive in a world that was hostile to life. A small group of soldiers, led by Lieutenant Joran, emerged from a side tunnel. Their faces were tight with focus, their uniforms frosted over from the storm. They carried portable shields, scanning devices, and communication units. "Commander," Joran said, "perimeter checks complete. Nothing unusual yet, but the ice keeps shifting. We need constant monitoring." Ryan placed a hand on his shoulder. "Keep alert. The ice may be our friend, but it can also hide dangers we cannot see. Remember, we adapt, we do not panic." Solin's drones returned to the dome for battery recharge. He wiped frost from his gloves and smiled faintly. "It is strange, but," he said, "how the cold makes every small success feel bigger. Every functioning generator, every sensor that works, every little step forward, it is a victory." Mara looked up from her maps. "It is more than victory. It is a message. Every corner of Varine tells the Empire that we are ready. They may have ships, they may have weapons, but we have endurance, and they cannot understand that." Rion stepped back and looked at the frozen plains again. The wind tore across the ice, and the light from the dim sun made the snow sparkle. He felt the weight of responsibility. These humans were far from home, facing an enemy that thought they were insignificant. Yet he also felt a quiet pride. They had survived worse than storms, worse than ice, worse than long nights of isolation. They had survived each other's doubts and fears. And now, they were ready to show the galaxy what humans could do. Night came early on Varine, not because of rotation, but because of the thick storm clouds that blocked the sun. Inside the domes, lights glowed warmly, casting soft shadows across the faces of soldiers, engineers, and planners. Rian walked through the hallways, nodding to those he passed. He saw fatigue in their eyes, but he also saw determination. It was the same determination that had allowed humans to colonize countless worlds, to survive countless disasters, and to keep moving forward when everything seemed lost. In one of the central chambers, a small group of civilians and support staff gathered. They were families of soldiers, scientists, and technicians. Their eyes were wide with fear and hope. They did not fight on the front lines, but they too understood the stakes. Every meal, every repair, every instruction mattered. Each person contributed to the survival of the whole. Ryan addressed them quietly. "You are as important as any soldier outside. Your courage keeps us alive. Every day you prove that humanity can endure. Do not forget that. Do not underestimate the strength you carry simply by surviving here." Outside, the storm raged harder. Ice walls groaned under pressure. Snow whipped across open plains, and the wind howled like an endless drum. Yet inside, humans worked, adapted, and prepared. They were a single organism of effort, creativity, and endurance. They would not bend, they would not yield. Hours passed, and still no Thalari ships appeared in orbit. But Rion knew it was only a matter of time. The Empire would come confident in its power. They would expect to find weak humans, afraid of the ice and the isolation. What they would find instead was preparation, unity, and cleverness born from centuries of survival. Rion returned to the observation window for one final look before rest. The pale light of Varine reflected off the ice, casting a glow across the frozen landscape. It was beautiful in its starkness. It was deadly, and it was human territory. As he stood there, he felt a quiet truth settle over him. No matter what came, humanity on Varine would not break. They would endure storms, they would endure fear, and they would endure isolation. And when the time came, they would face the Thalari with everything humans had learned from surviving the impossible. Commander Rion turned away from the window. He knew that soon the quiet of the ice world would be shattered, but he also knew something else. In every human heart in that outpost, in every mind and hand, there was a strength the Thalari could not measure, a determination they could not understand, and a courage that could not be frozen. Varine was cold. Varine was dangerous. Varine was human. And on that frozen warfront, humanity stood ready.